Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most. We're going to cover a lot of ground today. We're going to talk about making a film. We're going to talk about the Whole 30. We are even going to tell you about a robbery that took place in Houston. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
It's not very often that we can't bring something that happens just before we hit the record button onto JJ Meets World, but you and I were just talking, and I think we've invented an act for adults to do during bedtime. And I think we can just give people the name, and then if you encounter us in person, we can explain what it is, which I've had to do a couple times in my day job on the radio. I've had to tell people, like, well, I can't tell you the name of this company because I don't want to put them on, blast order.
I've spoken so openly on this podcast for so long that I actually have sort of waking nightmares about going on a radio show that's live and forgetting that for a moment, and then just saying something that gets me uninvited and fined and anything else that
there's nothing worse than finding out, like, oh, I made a big whoopsie, right? There's a great bit by comedian Patton Oswalt where he talks about how when he was asked to be on the Tonight Show, they're like, this is great, but could you just change some of the stuff in your act? And he goes, well, what do you mean? They're like, well, it's got to be appropriate for television. And he goes, oh, come on down to Uncle Harry's Bingle Bangle. And he goes on this whole thing. And I was like, I want to fill you full of goof juice. And I remember like hearing that and going like, it must be impossible for some stand-up comedians who get their big break by getting on national television, right? But they don't have a solid 5-minute routine that does not incorporate some kind of adult material or something that you can't say on television.
Right. You're the person to ask this because you have both a foot in the comedy world and you also have a foot in the morning radio world. Stand-up comedians on their podcasts will routinely complain about doing morning radio spots to advertise for their upcoming, nighttime slot or whatever. Where do you stand on that? Do you have really awkward conversations with comedians who just don't want to be there when they come in?
Here's the thing. I have been both. I've been both the host of a radio show that they've brought in, and I've also been a comedian in another town having to be on like DJ and the Meat Stick. And so I will tell you this, trying to get, because you've got maybe 2 minutes, right? Like morning radio, those breaks are short. And so you've got such a short amount of time. And they have to also get the temperature in, right?
Right.
They're like, hey there, Billings, Montana. It's the #1 Q crew to wake up with in the morning.
Yeah, the vocal styling for a lot of that stuff is sort of like the vocal equivalent of like 20 fluorescent lights just blaring into your eye.
And the idea is that if you hit them with energy, they need that in the morning, right? You can't have someone who's like, this is your old buddy Tankaroo telling you that it's coffee time. That just doesn't work, right? That's someone who's like, I'm going to go back to bed. I'm going to go back to my sheets and I'm going to make some stinkies underneath the comforter and go for there. So I will tell you this, it's impossible to get what somebody's comedic style is and what their take is. And then a lot of times they're just like, hey, tell us about the show. It'd be like, well, I'm performing in a strip mall that I'm told used to be an old Ben Franklin. And the show's at 7:30, 9:30, and 10:30. And they're like, okay, now, hey, you must have an interesting take on milk. And And they'll be like, well, I mean, yeah, it comes from a cow. And other places too. Like, there's a lot of places that have milk, and they're like, oh, okay, well, book your tickets now. And there's just nothing. When I'm interviewing somebody, I like what we always tried to do was to play a clip of theirs and be like, you know, funny man, Chris Times is going to be on in 20 minutes.
Right.
You know, this is Chris talking about mother-in-laws. And then you play that. But it is very, I don't know what to say. It's worthless is what it is.
I was going to say.
Because nobody's listening to that while they're like taking their morning dump and going like, oh, yes. If you're using an alarm clock that has like an AM FM radio feature, and that's what clicks on at 6:15 in the morning, you are not going to go, yeah, I'm motivated to buy tickets to a comedy show tonight.
I would be like, to hell with that comedy show. It just woke me up.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And you might say the same thing about whatever music is playing on a regular basis, or if they've got a wacky weather guy.
Well, and I also usually assume that if you're a professional comedian, you probably normally wake up after the noon hour.
Oh, definitely. You've got bartender's hours, right? So you are performing late at night. You probably are too jazzed to go to bed right away. It just is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
I couldn't live that life.
And I couldn't live the life of a comedian who's, in fact, there's a really amazing movie called Sleepwalk with Me about Mike Birbiglia. And it's about how it's based off of a book he wrote that's based on his real life, about him getting so stressed out from being a road touring comedian that he walks out of a second-story hotel window, like by accident. And some of the movie is told as he's driving to his next gig, and he's like talking to you in the passenger seat. It's a really unique kind of movie. And, you know, they have those things where he talks about how he had been promised like $13 to do this gig, right, to open. And when he gets there, they had stiffed him. They just give him a $10 bill and not the extra $3. So he now can't afford the chicken fingers that he ordered. And it's amazing because there are people who do gigs like that, right? You are essentially getting enough gas to get to the next spot because that's where your hotel room is the next night.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was different when I was in Linebenders because we were doing it as a hobby for starters, and we commanded like a big enough price somehow that it was like, here you go, everyone. It's fun money. Hooray. But people like Phil Goodell, who's been on our podcast, he made a very decent second living off of it. And I figured out in 5 years, I did this math a while ago, but like in 5 years, we had paid over $125,000 out.
Nice.
Yeah. And like, just like straight up checks, $125,000.
That's awesome.
And I was like, that is insane.
Yeah.
By the way, I did not win Mega Millions last night.
Oh man, you looked like you had. Like I was wondering what all these.
Like this is gonna be the debut.
I was wondering what all of the bags around here with the dollar sign stamped on them are, but I just realized now you filled these with Cheetos.
Yeah, I was prepping for a photo shoot because I assumed I was going to win. I thought, well, this is the one time I'm going to actually win. Last night I fill up with gas and I go into.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. I filled my car up with petrol, as the Brits would say. And I walked into the loafing jug because I wanted to get like a bottle of water. I was on my way out to go to an event and I was like, I'm parched. And I'm waiting in this line of like 6 people. And the dude behind me said, are you buying lottery tickets? And I said, no. Should I be? And he said, yeah, it's $1 billion. And I said, $1 billion? Holy moly. I said, are you buying lottery tickets? And he goes, yes. I like my whole office is a pool. I'm buying $200 worth. And I was like, holy crap, $200. I said, what happens if you get a winning ticket and then you just claim it for your own? He goes, oh, we have a pact. And I was like, I have never made a pact with a coworker. Friends, of course. Lovers, undoubtedly. But my coworkers and I don't think have ever made a pact together. And I was thinking about this. I was like, there's so many good stories that would make great movies, like little slice of life kind of movies. So, of course, we all remember the Nicolas Cage movie, It Could Happen to You, where he has the lottery ticket and he vows to split it with the waitress because he doesn't have enough money for a tip. And then he does win the lottery and then he does split it with the waitress. But Tucker, there was a news story this week that I wanted to share with you. Hold on, let me pull it up, because I don't know how you feel about adapting something into a film right now, but I've got your next project for you. Okay. So I just, happened to be, it's the first thing that Google pops up. Okay. So I don't know if you have ever thought about making a family film, but this is definitely it. So this is the robbing of a Wells Fargo bank just on March 14th
of this year.
The FBI investigated this robbery that took place in Houston. Okay. And they made away with cash. The suspects were caught on camera robbing this Wells Fargo bank. Greens Point neighborhood, specifically in Houston. So they're little, we're talking about like a little tiny corner of Texas.
Got it.
The bank robbers were an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 16-year-old. They've been charged with robbery by threat, and this is being dubbed the Little Rascals robbery. Because
good name.
I know, because they're little scamps. They needed money for bubble gum.
So they clearly have an alfalfa, a Spanky, and who's the third?
Froggy.
Froggy.
He's the one who has to do all the talking, right? Because he's got the deep froggy voice.
Face.
An 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 16-year-old. Now, at first, they thought maybe these are just like young-looking 18-year-olds when they first saw it. But then their parents saw like footage of these kids on TV and turned their kids into the police.
Were they armed?
They said robbery by threat. And so they probably had their hands in their pockets saying like, I got a gun here,
right.
They're probably pointing their pointer finger and their thumb up because that's what a kid thinks a gun looks like.
Right. Or even it could have even been a note, right? Like slide across a note, say something.
You're in trouble now.
Yeah. Pay me XYZ. Wow. I mean,
I can't wait to find out what they want the money for.
And so one was 16, the other was 11 and 12.
And I guarantee you the 16-year-old is the bruiser. He's not the brains. I think it's probably the 11-year-old who's the brains.
I mean, yeah, what was the conversation leading up to that? It was just one Wells Fargo. It's probably the one they were always at.
Right. It's
driving
within,
by or whatever.
I was going to say it's within biking distance.
Sure.
I'd have to imagine. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, I'm picturing that this is in a suburb somewhere.
This is what happened. Everyone, get on the ground. You're going to sit cross-legged.
And were they crisscross applesauce? Were they masked?
It hasn't been said yet, and I'm waiting to see the footage. I also imagine they're like, we want $1 million, but all of it in quarters. Maybe there's an arcade nearby. I want to find out what they were looking for, because I really want to know what they want to spend that money on. They're like, we just want money.
No, they need a new treehouse. They need to build a new treehouse because the old one
burned down.
I'm thinking of the scene where give me as much wood as I can buy with this, please.
Paper or plastic. George Wendt. That's from the film The Little Rascals.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Me too.
That is such a good movie. I have not watched that in forever. I'm going to have to do a rewatch soon.
I feel like
maybe we do a commentary track to The Little Rascals.
Oh, yeah. Because it also has a former president in it being a total and complete piece of garbage at the very end.
Is Trump in it?
Yeah. He plays the dad of the rich kid.
Right. Okay. That's right.
And then Trump eats somebody else's popcorn and he spits it out onto them.
I forgot he was
in a bloopers take.
Whoopi Goldberg's in it.
Whoopi. Mel Brooks is in it. Like I said, George Wendt.
I love the pulling the beards and snapping them back up is so good.
If you were my children, I'd punish you. If we were your children, we'd punish ourselves. I can quote so much of that movie. Daryl Hannah is in it. She's wonderful. Do you remember the name of their club?
He-Man Woman Haters?
Yep.
But then they change it to He-Man Woman Haters Woman Welcome.
Yeah.
At the end, right? When it becomes they all pair up. Which at the same time is kind of a weird thing, right? Like these are 4 and 5-year-olds, and now they're pairing off as couples. Like, okay, Well,
they've assumed that they've automatically found like
there is a certain level of inappropriate, specifically from the 90s. Specifically from the 90s. I just brought up to you the other day. I had forgotten about, was it Kippendorf's Tribe?
Krippendorf's
Tribe. And I've seen that movie. I saw it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And just hadn't even thought of it for years. And then I think it was a Reddit post. Someone posted the photo. It was like, remember this movie? And I thought, oh my God, I do. Holy shit.
I vividly remember. And if you've never heard of the movie Krippendorf's Tribe, first of all, it was a widely released movie. It was the trailer was everywhere, and
Panned,
it was
though too.
Yeah, when it first came out, it stars Richard Dreyfuss and Jenna Elfman, and this is just as Jenna Elfman is like Dharma and Greg's coming out, so she's just starting to get a career. And what it is he is a single dad. His wife has passed away, and he's got I think like 3 kids. And he accepted a ton of grant money like a year earlier to go and search out this tribe that exists deep in like the jungles of South America, and a whole year has gone by, and so his university is like, well, we can't wait to hear your presentation on this tribe, and he's like stuck, and so he names the tribe the Shelmickamoo, which is the like first couple letters of all of his kids' name together, and he kind of improvises this thing about it, and they keep coming back, and they're like, well, of course we need to see photos, so they build like a grass hut, and he dons all of this makeup. Now, here's what's interesting. He has a beard, and the leader of the tribe also has a beard. But at one point, he date rapes Jenna Elfman. Like, he's like, oh, it's a video we have of the mating rituals of the Shelmickamoo, and he gets her like drunk on wine, and then gets her to dress up, and then films it, and then they show it like in front of a bunch of scholars.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like, and that is specifically like a 90s plot.
Yeah.
To a movie.
Oh, without a doubt. And in fact, that was something that's probably bid on by multiple studios. They're like, this is a great idea.
It could have been something too. Well, I believe it was based off of a book from the 80s.
Oh, really?
I think it's an adaptation of a book. So someone actually read the book and was like, this is great. We
got to make this into a movie.
This screams, feature film treatment.
I had an idea recently for a movie that I really want to flesh out called The Slow Cooker Murders. And I put it on my Facebook. I was like, which of these books would you rather read? And in fact, I'll give you all the titles. And The Slow Cooker Murders was the one that got the most attention. I'd like 2 people send me a DM. They slipped into my DMs about it. So these are the book titles. The Slow Cooker Murders, My Coworkers Steal Post-its, Carol P. Skee-Ball, Rubbing Another Man's Rhubarb, and The Ghost in the Puffy Coat. Do you know where the real money is in writing books?
Slow Cooker Murders is what I would have
right?
To, yeah.
And it's about a woman who judges stuff at county fairs, and there's always a murder at each county fair she's at.
Cookbooks?
What do you mean?
You were like, you know where the real money is in books?
Oh, it's not in cookbooks because
I was going to say, because that seems like the easiest thing.
Actually, there's a big scandal right now because Amazon has like 30 books written by a woman who is clearly an AI generated image and like an AI written profile.
Yeah.
And the books are like 2,000 crock pot recipes.
Yep.
And then when you read it, like crock pot was invented for many women who can't work at home anymore.
Yep.
And they're like, this is just an AI wrote this. And I'm like, 2,000 crockpot recipes? That is too many.
Yeah.
You must be being like, hey, it's beef and broccoli, like in this beef and carrots, beef and onions. You must do like beef and cotton candy.
Right.
So AI is
basically, can it fit in the crock pot? You can technically make a recipe for that.
Right. I saw someone who made toast in a crock pot the other day.
There was also there's a similar scam going on. So that's happening a lot. And especially, and it's weird because even before AI was doing this, people were also releasing public domain work so they could make their own printing of it, but they were changing whole texts in it and not saying anything and just publishing the work as that thing. And so like there's a group of people like working on a series of like checks of like, how do we ensure that the book you're buying is the actual text of A Tale of Two Cities, right? Or anything like that. Versus, so you and I could have both read A Tale of Two Cities thinking we have, and we've read completely different books. But there's a guy.
Imagine a school who like invests in like just, like 200 copies of that for their like 11th grade English projects. And every kid who graduates from that high school is all like, my favorite part of A Tale of Two Cities is when they went to the laser wars.
yeah. And when Darth Vader showed up. There was a guy in Scotland who is under fire right now because he has been using AI to do scams like the book thing, where he's published 30 like books on vaccine denial, and it's just combing the internet and putting things together. And then recently he tried to sell what was called the Willy Wonka experience.
Oh yeah.
You've heard about this?
I am well aware.
Yeah. So, and then he used AI to create all the art and all this stuff. And then when people showed up, I mean, it was just a nightmare. It's nothing even remotely like that. But he and
I actually, when I saw the images, I was like, I don't think he's actually ever seen the movie.
Right. Yeah. But what they're both doing is going, listen, there's a loophole I can do right now, and I'm going to get some people's money, and then I'll have to give some of it back, but I'll have some of it still. You know what I realized recently? I think it's FM Ballet just used AI to make their poster.
Really?
Who's doing Alice in Wonderland right now?
I do not know.
It's locally. I want to. I could be totally wrong. So FM Ballet, please don't get mad at me if I'm saying the wrong thing. One of the local producers of local theater and art, it has an AI generated poster, and it's clearly AI generated. And it was for a production of Alice in Wonderland, I believe. And it just made my stomach sink a little bit.
Yeah, it should.
When I looked at it, not that like I understand the logic some might try to use to convince themselves that this is a good idea. But they're participating they themselves are participating in the cheapening and commodifying of these things that they really require to not be, right? Like if you truly value having a vibrant local arts community, you shouldn't be using AI to generate an image. You should be working with an artist to make that image, and that artist should be not using AI to do it at the same time.
Correct.
And that's just how I feel about it.
I mean, my thought is always AI is plagiarism.
Yeah.
So because it's not creating anything, what it's doing is it's using the whole of creativity that's been put onto the internet at this point, and then just regurgitating it in some form. You know
what posters are not generated by AI? The posters for the feature film AJ Goes to the Dog Park.
I really enjoy them. In fact, they're really good.
Toby reached out to just a number of different artists and just was like, yeah, I'd like to have a poster series, and just basically artists he was a big fan of, right? And like, I would love it if you would you watch this movie and tell me if you'd make a poster for it? And they were all like, yeah. And so yeah, it's just been fun to see the art, like the variations come in, and he'd like let us all kind of give our opinion on stuff, and then he'd go back to them. So that's really, I just really enjoy that. That's what it should be, right? Working with an artist and collaborating.
One of the posters reminds me of like a poster for like a very serious movie, and I haven't figured out what it is, but it played at the Fargo Theater. It's the one where AJ and then the door, like essentially like the cartoon, like I bust through the door, so there's a hole of it, and they're laying and looking up, and I need to find the because
I know which one you're talking about.
Right, it's very it's very reminiscent of this like famous poster, and I'm like, it makes it even funnier in my opinion. Like, I don't think that it's actively trying to like rip something off. No. I think it's literally the absurdist nature of this. By the way, I interviewed Toby Jones.
The process of making that poster was a lot of fun, by the way. That particular one, because there was a lot of conversation of where does the wooden body lay.
Oh, sure.
Because at first, there was the first draft where it was on top of AJ, and it looked like it was giving him a blowjob unintentionally.
Yeah,
And so, like, there was a lot of, well, hold on. We got to figure out a different layout for this, and it ended up being the one you saw. Go ahead.
That's good. I interviewed Toby this last week leading up to the premiere of AJ Goes to the Dog Park of the full feature film.
Yep, which is happening later today as we record this.
And one of the things I told him was I said, you know what I really like about this? And given I've only seen that first like 15 minutes that they've put out, but it's not mean and it's not cruel. And I think that's so easy in comedy, and it's easy to do things that are like mean and just people using anger as something to drive comedy. But the sweetness of it and kind of the gentleness of it is really amazing. And Toby was talking about like, this is a guy who loves his routine. And when his routine is upended, he would do anything to regain his routine. And I'm like, that is such an amazing idea. Yeah. But you know, like when you think about it, that's kind of a hero's journey in a lot of ways, like trying to find what your routine, you're trying to get back to the thing that you think you want and finding out it's not what you want.
Yeah.
Right?
An adventure can start anywhere. I've seen now the finished film a few times because we were all giving notes on the edit, and effects artists were working on it, and sound mixers were working on it. And so we were watching iterations of it as it came through. And the thing that I think the feedback we kind of get from all of these other artists that we've reached out to work on it is that they're so in love with the feeling of joy of making something that permeates the whole piece. Like you really do get that sense that the group of people who made this thing really love it and did it out of a sense of love for it. And it was really hard. We've worked on this film for 4 years now. And so there've been ups and downs, and there were times where I was like, I'm losing my mind. And there were times where I was happier than I'd ever been for a long time. But being able to be a part of the process has been really important for me over the past couple of years. And I've been reflecting on that a lot lately, ever since my work on it has been done. And so I was like, there's nothing left for me to do. I can now kind of reflect on it. And there were some dark moments in my life the past couple of years where having this creative project to turn to and just work on from time to time with a group of people who are awesome and just love to do it has been a real lifesaver. It really, really has. Also, you're in the film.
I am.
You have a couple of moments that are big, that the entire production crew are big fans of.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm very happy that I got asked back. That was a real honor. And then, of course, like I told my wife, I was like, you gotta come with, like, to see this because our house is in it.
Yep. It is in it.
And I was like, I want you to see like our house. Like it's neat, right? And like, I know the first thing Jill's gonna say is she's like they reorganize stuff in the house, and be like, just shut up and enjoy the movie. Yeah. Also, I got a real conundrum, Tucker.
Uh-oh.
So, hi Rachel. I know you're listening to this podcast, and I know you're also sleeping in my basement. And I know that you listen to JJ Meets World, and my worry here is that things that you hear on here, you're going to report back to my wife, who I thought this was a safe space because Jill does not listen to JJ Meets World.
It's just you and me here, JJ.
Right, it's just us.
I'm looking around. I don't see another person in this room.
And apparently she recently had Jill start to listen to an episode while they were driving together somewhere, and then she turned it off because she was worried I was going to say something. So this is for the rest. This is for the world that JJ meets. Don't tell my wife. It's not a secret, but sometimes, just being blissfully ignorant is what you want. Just don't tell my wife.
I think this has probably been the point for Rachel the whole time is like, I'm getting so much stuff on JJ.
Right. She was like, let's all do the whole 30 together. Because had you ever done the whole 30?
No.
Okay, so
I don't know what that is.
So the whole 30, it's like it's one of those ketosis type diets where no sugar, right? No processed foods.
Yeah, which is different than what I've been doing the past 48 hours.
It's a really I remember doing, and you're supposed to do it for 30 days, right? And see how you feel after 30 days.
The whole 30.
The whole 30. And I did the whole 30 years ago, and I felt great, but you have to completely rethink the way that you cook everything, right? And so I made a whole 30 batch of taco meat for us.
Look up the rule set here. Keep going.
And it was great. It was awesome. We had a wonderful meal. And then the next day, Jill and I broke it immediately. And the next day, Jill must have immediately squealed the second she saw Rachel, and she's like, "We stopped eating the whole 30. We did this instead." And I was like, "Yeah, you don't worry. You don't need to be, someone who says like, listen, I've got to be honest about this thing."
Is Jill a bad liar?
She's not a liar, period.
Okay.
Like, that's the thing, is it's not in her body. In fact, that's why I don't think Jill could ever act, is because she'd be the one who's like, be like, oh Henry, I've spent the summer at the shore watching the birds. She'd go, excuse me, can I get cut? I wasn't at the shore and I did not watch any birds. And they're like, I know you're pretending. And she's like, also, could someone call me Jill instead of Gladys?
How come how come the whole 30 is actually 40 days?
I don't know.
The whole 30 program is laid out in 2 phases: 30 days of elimination, which just sounds like you're taking shits all the time, and 10 days of reintroduction of your shits. For the first 30 days, you'll be eating meat, seafood, and eggs, lots of veggies and fruit, and natural healthy fats. The list of foods you'll eliminate may seem intimidating, but you've got 150 recipes here to see you through. It's only 30 days. Anyways, keep going. Those are the rules.
Yeah, but it's 3 meals a day for 30 days. And like
that's a lot for me. I have a slow digestion.
Think about somebody who during an entire month, you can't go out to eat. Like, there's just nothing for you to eat when you go out.
No legumes?
Yeah, no legumes.
Why?
I don't know.
I thought that was okay.
Because of something inside the legumes.
Oh, because calories.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my favorite line from Parks and Rec.
I have got some great recipes from it.
No dairy. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Do you what? You love the dairies?
Do you not?
I love the dairies, but like, you're so mad about it.
Well, yeah. What else is there to look forward to in the day if I can't at least have cheese?
So there's a world where Tucker goes, today's not complete because I haven't had any cheese.
Dude, you take cheese away from me and I will cut a bitch.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. The poster for the Little Rascals robbery is clearly like a fisheye lens looking down, and they're in a crib. It's like, these bars ain't gonna hold them.